Welcome, everyone, to your doom. Formula One is back after a weirdly short summer break, and to host the first round back is everyone's eighth favorite circuit on the calendar, the Zandvoort circuit for the Dutch Grand Prix. This track, despite being a returning addition to the calendar, has always just kind of blended in for me. I don't know. Like, its visual identity is, of course, very unique since what other beachfront tracks can you name? But I don't know. The racing here just hasn't lived up to its hype. And every single year, we always hear about the craziness of this track and the sick ass banked corners that will rock your socks off, but like nothing has really happened from them, nor anywhere on the track for that matter. Sure, last year was kind of chaotic with Lewis killing himself and Charles getting murdered for good measure, but what else is there? Rain in 2023, conspiracy in 2022. You could find that at literally every other track. But I don't want to make it seem like I abhor this place. In fact, I quite like it. Like I said, its visual identity is of course beautiful, but the atmosphere is also electric with the Orange Army, and despite my thrashing on the banked corner, it still is quite a lovely spectacle. It's a unique place, you know? So the fact that it is leaving the calendar permanently, not even being on rotation, it does make me quite sad. But oh well, it's not like we're losing much racing action. Anyways, enough about the track. How about the event, since the 2026 Dutch Grand Prix could be very interesting. Something about this place is gaps are so dang close due to the short layout and many corners, so a close top fight is almost guaranteed. And when you have teams like Ferrari announcing they'll go aggressive with the upgrade soon, and McLaren doing that right now, hey man, if I were Kimi, I would start to ensure that my nose is clean at all costs. Anyways, let us see if this race could be good for once by looking at the weekend and finding us some winners and losers. Subscribe if you love weed or gay sex, and remember to check out the Crash Happy Podcast, the only F1 podcast where we talk about F1 when there's no F1. So with that said, let's get to quacking now.
See those clouds up in the corner? That's where the rain is coming from.
Heading into Thursday, they got him. Isaac Hadjar is out for the Dutch Grand Prix already since his hand broke beating his sack, but luckily, this happened before the sessions and media stuff, which means Red Bull were able to rest Isaac while replacing his car. Oh my god, who did they replace him with? Is the Yuki prophecy true after all? Is this what the kids mean by the incident? Well, instead of giving Yuki the key to Isaac balls, Red Bull gave the keys to Liam Lawson and instead forced Yuki to fill in Lawson's seat. Now, at first, I was slightly mad at this since Yuki is a third driver for both teams, sure, but the way they replaced the drivers, it's a bit complicated, no? But then I came to my senses and realized it makes total sense since, well, who has raced in these new cars longer? Yeah. Anyways, also in the news, Graham Loudon, team principal of Cadillac, had very low expectations since the Caddy's first year. It's not like they were going to win the title, right? But holy hell, did he not even meet the low expectations since the man was fired for Kik Patowski, former Alpine director, and one can only hope now that the Caddy car can stop exploding in millions of pieces. Finally in the news, the silly season is in full swing now as Alex Albon has re-signed with Williams. Okay, Carlos Sainz has re-signed with Williams. Max Verstappen has re-signed with Red Bull. Okay, what the fuck? With these many empty seats on the grid, I'm gonna be so livid if everyone just re-signs and we only get like one new rookie for 2027, if at all. Honestly, I think high paychecks are the reason to blame since with Max now getting a contract damn near worth $100 million per year until 2030, why would he want to move teams? Same with Carlos taking home like 53% of Williams' revenue. Anyways, that's all the news of the week, so let us transition and also talk about the Friday sessions, which newsflash is a sprint weekend format. Here in Zandvoort? Well, if you think that's crazy, wait till you see Singapore, buddy. Anyways, how did FP1 and sprint qualifying end up? The sole practice session for this weekend turned out to be a doozy actually, since where most sprint FP1 sees everyone staying out of each other's ways and doing their own thing since there won't be other practices, it's clear everyone is a bit rusty from the summer since, my god, you think F1 cars don't have mirrors? What also adds to this chaos is how every driver seemingly went into the gravel at least once today, and the case of Kimi showed his masterful skills in spinning like the GOAT Julian Palmer once said. Aside from the random session though, the grid order is kinda looking a bit bit tame. Mercedes looked the fastest so far from McLaren, which is kind of what we expected, with Ferrari and Red Bull both adrift. However, Ferrari are going to stick on a new floor for sprint qualifying, since where they could have practiced it in FP1, I guess they didn't realize that. Anywho, now for the aforementioned sprint qualifying, and here is exactly what I like. Now the top 5 is looking proper close as Mercedes, McLaren, and Ferrari are exchanging fastest lap times. Aside from Kimi going off in the gravel though, SQ1 did turn out to be a bit boring, and SQ2 was just as exciting as your life, while SQ3 would also low-key be disappointing. Where the previous 2 sessions saw Mercedes low-key the worst out of the big 3, I guess they saved their hand for when it mattered the most, since Russell took pole over Norris and Charlie Kirk, and while the gap is super tight, I don't know, Mercedes just looked the most comfortable, but it's George Russell in that car, so what's likely to happen is the engine blowing up in a never-before-seen way. And that's Friday done, which means Saturday is next up with a big bad sprint race and the main qualifying. My god, what a boring waste of time. Seriously, with the way Dominicali is calling the fans too dumb to understand the regulations, you would think he is a genius. But a sprint race here in Zandvoort, one of the hardest tracks to overtake on, went just as well as a 2-week announcement for a terrorist attack on the president's life. But yeah, lap 1 got underway, nothing happened, some more nothing happened, Leclerc overtook Norris, and the race ended. And just to rub some salt on that wound, rain started to piss down the circuit right when George crossed the line in P1, so I guess a sprint can take the award for the biggest blue balls of the year. Anyways, with that dog shit out the way, now we have the real man's qualifying, where I think it's anyone's game yet again. Q1 and Q2 were nothing, however Q3 is where the good stuff is at. Immediately, rain is being threatened, so the drivers quickly set a banker lap, and as they come in for a tire change, the rain is here. Track position is key, and Antonelli is first on track, with of course Lewis last. So Kimi goes fast as before, Norris goes even faster, and the only contender left really is George, who crosses a line, but only into P2, meaning Lando takes home the pole position. Also, the rain didn't really affect too much, which at this point, I don't know why I even got my hopes up in the first place. Anyways, with everything now complete, it is time for Sunday, race day. With less than an hour to race start, it starts to rain hard at Zandvoort, and right when you think it will be a wet start, the rain stops in like 5 seconds and the track starts to dry quickly, leading to a slick start. I hate this sport sometimes. Anyways, lap 1 begins, and despite everyone being on slicks, it is greasy on the surface, which leads to some people challenging like Lawson and Max, and maybe this race can be good, you know. But before lap 2 even begins, we have a red flag thrown out because of all people to crash at the banking here in Zandvoort. Max is out of the race. Hater or not, have some sympathy since this is just brutal. Anyways, red flag lifts, and the next race start is just confusing as hell because everyone jumps ahead in the pit lane, which leads to Stroll and the caddy super behind, and then Ollie blows up for good measure and brings us an extra formation lap. All of this, by the way, for a 3 out of 10 race, mind you. But now we start again, and immediately, Kimi gets the lead from Norris and starts to wander off while everyone else behind is fighting. This race is actually kind of heat, you know, since you have the top runners piling up behind while Lando and Kimi dart off and the midfield is on fire. Of course, this track's last race is a heater. Anyways, yeah, Lando and Kimi are sticking with each other, and even with the stops, they are still glued to one another. And as both are on hard tires, Kimi cannot cope with them while Lando is in some amazing flow state. All this leads to Lando overtaking him with some 20-ish laps to go and presumably to win the race. However, soon after that, a VSC is out for Ocon, who DC'd, and Kimi uses the opportunity to go on soft tires. But enough about them. During all that time, the midfield has been on fire since everyone is overtaking each other, and this is the midfield I have missed this year. Even Alonso's in the points for crying out loud. Anyways, back to the present. The VSC is done, and now Lando easily cruises home to a well-deserved and fought victory from Kimi Antonelli and Russell in third. Overall, a pretty dang good race, but don't let this trick you into thinking this track is actually good in modern Formula 1. Now for the winners and losers, and as always, losers first, and I have Aston Martin, who return where they belong. After a weekend where they were winners in Hungary for debuting a brand new and honestly hopeful B-Spec car, they rock here in Zandvoort and do look better than they did in round 1, albeit still got on both Q1s and never looked close to the points. And to make it even better, they brought a brand new engine upgrade here to find 3 to 4 tenths, and in fairness, they did do that very well. That's how dogshit Honda have been this year. Now, maybe I'm dumb and didn't see a report saying the engine was delayed or only brought for FP1, but even then, it's not like they looked any better. Now, of course, it is very disingenuous to say Aston have been as bad as they normally have been. No, like I said, they definitely improved here, but a 34/10th engine upgrade for most teams would skyrocket them forwards up the grid. For Aston, it took them from P21 and 22 to P16 and P17, if even. Now, another 3 to 4/10th engine upgrade would undoubtedly bring them closer to points territory, if not be in it fully. But for 2026, I think that hope is gone. Now, I will give them credit though. At this pace, and especially if Jonathan Wheatley is going to become team principal, 2027 could yet still be a hopeful year, but time will ultimately tell what's in store for this team. Man, what went wrong? Next is Cadillac, who, yeah, you know what I'ma say. Caddy once more had a miserable weekend, more so because Aston Martin are no longer hanging with them. Cadillac are fully alone now in the backmarker area, and they know that this performance cannot go on any longer. They have fired Loudon, of course, and I can't say I blame them. Cadillac have made next to zero progress all year long, and yes, new team, blah 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 blah, it's still highly questionable. You would think by this point they would have brought an upgrade package that could see them closer to Q2 levels, but no, they just aren't there yet. And perhaps this is me being harsh on them, since given the nature of Zandvoort, a new team like Caddy were never going to do well, as they do not have the downforce quite yet. However, even at tracks like Canada, Miami, Barcelona, they barely looked better. So yeah, I do not blame Cadillac for the sacking. Let's just hope the new guy can bring some improvements to the team now, since if by 2028 they really aren't doing too much better, it may be wraps for the team very soon. Next is Williams. I just get so sad looking at them. Williams had so much hope coming into this year, but alas, nothing has manifested, and I fear some changes are to be expected soon. Since with Aston Martin knocking on their territory and Audi fully escaping it, I can't imagine the higher-ups at Williams are too happy with James AEIOU. Yes, he has given insane value to the team in years like 2023, 2024, 2025, hell, his entire tenure, but that was a different era of Formula 1. In this new one, he has been so lackluster and disappointing, and like the saying goes, you're only as good as your last race. Sure, it's more of a driver thing, but why shouldn't it apply to team principles? If this promised B-Spec car for Baku or Madrid fails, I could see a reality where he is sacked going into 2027, and one better hope that they finally recover. Williams have been on thin ice in the sport ever since 2017, and one can only wonder how many more disappointing years they can have before the ice fully breaks. Oh, and yeah, they also crashed in the race, but how is that not even the worst thing from their weekend? Next is Max for, I think you could guess why. Now, anytime I criticize Max, I get a wave of hate, so hate me with all you got, I could take it. Anyways, Max had a pretty mid weekend until the race. I didn't have him listed anywhere as winner, mid, or loser, since why should I? The Red Bull car this week was dog shit, so Max's performances were not that bad in my eyes. But crashing out in front of the main stands during your last home race, it's just not good. Rule number 1 of oval racing: never go in too deep, since he will crash, and lo and behold, he crashed. I can't not put him as a loser, since with the context, man, just what a brutal weekend for Max. Brutal year in general, surprisingly. And finally, I have Ollie Behrman. I'll keep him short since there isn't too much to discuss. He just had a very disappointing weekend, and it sucks. But like, what am I supposed to say? He was dog shit, that car should have gotten points, and he failed because he's a terrible driver? No, man. The car is just so bad right now, and sooner or later, he was going to have a weekend like this one. Low confidence, low level of performance. One just needs to hope that this weekend does not repeat itself. It's also ironic how Ocon for once was good in the car, but in the weekend where Ollie was nowhere, why can't Haas be good, man? Please. Now for the mid guys of the week, and let us begin with Esteban Ocon, who has had his best weekend in a long while. Of course, still the mids here though. Firstly, the positives. He was ahead of Behrman fully this weekend and did look pretty comfy in that car. All season long, Ocon has stated everything about it and everything about the team, but here he was a much happier camper. Now for the negatives, he was still nowhere near the points nor in Q3, and also DNF'd, which is not good, obviously. However, I'm not going to be harsh and say that is his fault. The Haas team have fallen so hard this year, it's not funny, it's just sad. They say they upgrade the car, but Do they? Every week the cars look the same since Barcelona, which is nowhere to be fucking found. So I don't blame Ocon for finishing where he did or doing what he did. What more can he even do? Actually, I have an answer. Stay at this level of performance. Because maybe I'm coping, but I think Haas have a nice upgrade package coming soon, and when it hits, I expect the points to be within their grasp again. I'm confident Ollie can achieve them since one bad weekend won't define him, I hope, but I'm still iffy on Ocon. However, if he performs like this in Monza, Baku, and so on, then hey, I think we could be back, fellas. Finally, I have Alpine, who once again occupy a mid-tier slot. I mean, if you have seen my videos this year, I'm sure you could guess what I'm about to say. Alpine were good, then RB showed up. Now they're behind, but not so much. They still do semi-good. But actually, this weekend, I would say they're tethering more on the loser's territory since, even taking away the bullshit drive-through penalty Colapinto got, Alpine have to lock in soon. Audi are on their territory now, and RB is escaping it forward more and more every single weekend. Gasly had a pretty mid-weekend overall, and Colapinto was never in a place to set things alight. So I'm gonna leave it to your interpretation. Were they mid this week, or were they losers instead? Let me know in the comments. Now for the winners, and first up is of course Lando Norris. Lando all weekend long has been having a good weekend despite some good old balance issues. I swear every weekend this guy complains about imbalance, but is that even happening? Lando was fantastic this weekend as he was clinical as he could be, and despite the lackluster beginning of the race, managed to lock in for the middle and end of it, which led to a brilliant win for him. Lando and Kimi are an interesting pair of drivers as in my opinion, I think they're the top 3 quickest drivers in terms of pace. So when these two are in a fight for a win, those guys just dart off in the distance and give us a show. And that's my favorite type of race. So yeah, just good job, Lando. Let's see how much he could really involve himself in this year's fight. Moving quickly, next we have the Mercedes drivers who were decent. Yeah, I say it like that because I don't really know how to assess their weekend. Up until the race, they were fine as that stuff is mostly reliant on driver performance. The qualies and sprints were all good and dandy, but when we got to the race, then things get weird. It starts great with Kimi who takes an early lead, but is countered by George getting duped hard. And then the race progresses and Kimi loses pace on the hard tire while George does fine, eventually leading to both of them on the podium. I mean, it's a win in my books, but their strategy really could have been better, especially with the unnecessary VSC stop for Kimi. Either way, both Kimi and George did the best they could, and a double podium is still not shabby at all. Kimi is going to need some curse and a half should his championship lead be contested, cause if a win weekend for him still sees him second, man is that kid amazing. Next, I have Lawson and Tsunoda. I'm bunching them together for obvious reasons. On such short notice, I think these two were really impressive, and I think with Lawson, it proves something that we have been wondering for a while. Well, it kind of proves two things, but before we discuss that, Yuki especially was pretty impressive since he hasn't been racing this year, of course. So the fact that he was able to hop into the RB and look pretty good pace-wise, I see that as a total win. Of course, he was beaten by Lindblad, but give Yuki some more practice and weekends, he could easily be on his pace. And with Liam, he entered that dreaded Red Bull car again, but he didn't do bad like last time. He qualified within a 10th to Max in 8th, and for the race, he was doing well to not crash a car like last time. And I think this proves one of two things, if not both. One is that the Red Bull car is easier to drive now since it isn't so catered to Max now that Horny is gone. And two, Red Bull drivers do improve after getting sacked. Could there have been a reality where Gasly got rehired to Red Bull after 2020 and 2021 and done well? Maybe, but I guess we'll never know, especially if the car was catered towards Max anyways and during that time. Either way, both Yuki and Liam impressed me, and now I can only wonder what more they could have done with some more practice and time. Damn you, sprint format. Next is the Audi drivers, who despite the winners, had a pretty tumultuous weekend. Firstly, Hülkenberg started the weekend a little bit rough, but from the sprint onwards, he was much better, especially in the main race, who did some sick-ass overtakes. And as for Gabby, you gotta feel for him. Up until the race, he was having yet another brilliant weekend, but of course, spun at the final corner on lap 1 and kinda ruined his race from there. I feel bad for them because Audi have been good for most of the season, but the one thing that happens to them in the race just relegates them super behind, and despite doing the maximum, it's still not what it could have been. But yet, both drivers did really well today, so it is hard to fault them fully for their misfortunes. Plus, Hulk got points, so we can't really be mad now, can we? Finally, I have Arvid Lindblad. Lindblad we keep short since he has been doing what he has for most of the season, just being so damn good. Every weekend is seeing some minor improvement from him, and this is great progress. In recent weekends, especially has he looked more clinical behind the wheel, and using that upgraded RB is gathering some well-deserved points. And that's all I really have to say since, yeah, he's just doing pretty damn good in the car, and I don't think anything is appearing that suggests he could fall off soon. Oh, and if you're expecting me to talk about the penalty he got, it was bullshit just like Colapinto's, and I'm just trying to mentally block it out of my head. Actually, finally, I have Fernando Alonso. Now, I know I trashed Aston for their lackluster upgrades, but Alonso is not deserving of any trashing. In the qualifying, he maximized his results, and my god, in the race, he was something special. If he is going to re-sign his contract, then please get better, Aston, because I need to see this Fernando again. Seeing him do well in the sport is the greatest rush of dopamine, and I need it more. Yes, Fernando was on a bit of a bullshit strategy, but it worked out in the end, so you can't be mad or confused. But please, Aston, better upgrades. It's not that hard. Finally, let us look at my predictions and bingo from the weekend. My sprint predictions were super and duper wrong. My qualifying predictions were actually kind of close with the McLarens and Kimi being spot on, even a Ferrari being there. My race predictions were actually so good for once. What the hell? My random prediction was literally proven wrong before lap 1 had even ended. Your predictions were mostly wrong, but some of you guys did see the Lando vision, and you know what? I gotta respect that. And finally, my bingo card is once more without an upgrade. So those were the winners and losers of the weekend. You know, I'll admit, I didn't miss F1 much when it left, but I'm pretty glad it's back now. I'm pretty optimistic for the end of this season. In 2027, I'm feeling it in the air. I'm feeling a 9/11 never forget season. Anyways, I want to give a quick shout out to all members of the flock for the continued support. Make sure to join if you want cool benefits as well as just helping me out. Anyways, if you enjoyed today's video, make sure to like and subscribe since it really helps me out. Make sure to let me know in the comments what you think of this. And as always, have an amazing day.
Good weather for the duck.